Hi everyone, welcome back to JP WHU TV. It's nice to see you. I hope you're keeping well. This is episode 2 of the West Ham United Positional Review mini-series where we're looking at positions within the team where we feel, you and I, and also our guest, Lawrence, who's here for the second week in a row now, where we give our opinions on, and this week is going to be in the midfield. So we're going to literally be talking about where we feel players can be in certain places. But as always, guys, this video is sponsored by the channel sponsor 3retro.com. Please click the link in the description below that will take you directly through to the West Ham section of their website where you can purchase some really nice retro gear, guys, along with Admiral and Umbro track jackets, polo shirts, sweatshirts and t-shirts. So go check those out, as you can see from the icon that's up here. Roundabout anyway. Any purchases you make through the link in the description below, the commission that the channel would normally be getting, I'll be sending directly on to the charity Iron Supporting Food Banks. The charity, they're based in the Newham area and they're helping those in the Newham area and the Essex County and further afield, because I think they're actually working in certain food banks in Hertfordshire as well, as last time I heard they were supporting 37 separate food banks. So guys, there's a lot of people out there that are worse off than you and I, so go grab yourself a really nice retro shirt or a very nice polo. You'll be saving yourself a few quid in comparison to the club shop, as we've talked about before and we will be talking about again, and you'll be helping those the less fortunate than you and I. So guys, let's welcome Lawrence back onto the channel. How you doing, mate?
Hello buddy, yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good. Right, so this is probably going to be one of the slowest videos out of the quickest videos, I should say, out of the three, because there's not much to talk about, to be fair. Now, as we talked about, you gave us your opinions on the goalkeeper and defence positions last week. One of the reasons why we're doing it by position rather than player is because that's a bit easier to talk about than actually going into the nuts and bolts of players itself. However, there were a few stories that have come out over the last day or so, or 2 days by the time you guys are watching this on YouTube, in terms of bids being rejected for certain midfielders, which comes in quite nicely. I think we've timed this just right. But before we go into that, though, Lawrence, how are you feeling in comparison to the fact that we've got no signings in and we've got literally 3 weeks to go until the season starts?
Yeah, well, West Ham Twitter's freaking out, isn't it?
No. Not everybody else's opinions. Yours, mate.
Well, mine is that this is just same old, isn't it? Happens every year. You know, we've had some interesting transfer windows across the Sullivan era, but I think on the whole they are improving. You know, the last one seemed to be coming good in the end after a slow start, and that slow start is the annoying thing. You know, you want to get these players in earlier. You want to bed them in sooner, but maybe there's a reason, you know, in the boardroom or for whatever reason that they tend to leave these things late. So I can't get excited about it anymore.
No, well, I know what you mean, mate. I mean, because at the end of the day, you're absolutely spot on with this. It's typical West Ham, straight through and through, and we've been, well, we used to do it under Redknapp, for that matter. You know, there's bargain day basics that you always used to go for. But you know, it's quite interesting that it came out over the last few days that there seems to be what appears to be a power struggle at the hierarchy level in comparison to. It just makes me laugh that, you know, a lot of people were whinging about how dictatorial David Sullivan is and was in terms of signings that were coming in, and now that there's an alleged democracy going involved, that David Sullivan, David Moyes, and Tim Steidten have a vote on it, and people are not happy with that. So it's just from that point of view, nothing really changes either, for that matter.
No, that's a strange situation, and I wonder if there's that much to it. Whether it's paper talk, I don't know. Ooh, I hope so.
Well, you know, I've generally heard reliable sources. I mean, ex-West Ham employee for one.
Right.
They mentioned it on a podcast earlier this week when they were talking about it. Obviously, you know, Claret and Hugh say it as quickly as possible to cause unrest, as they always do. And that's obviously caught everybody else to talk about it on other various levels of social media. But at the same point, this is kind of the reason why we brought in Tim Steidten in the first place, a technical director who wants to invest in the future. Apparently his targets are young players that will be able to potentially have a sell-on fee in the next few years, whereas David Moyes is looking at the here and now and older players that have got Premier League experience. Now, one of the reasons for that is the fact that over the last few days, Now it's a little bit difficult to interpret which way round it is, because certain people are saying that their actual bids, and other more reliable sources are saying that there's been verbal bids. So it's a little bit shaky from that, but we've definitely been having in conversations with Southampton for Ward-Prowse. What are your thoughts on Ward-Prowse if that was to come? You guys don't know that. For those that have watched the channel for a long time, you guys will know, and for the people that haven't watched this channel for a long time, haven't watched the channel before, I don't really talk about rumours, but when it's out in the public eye from confirmed legitimate sources, then that's the time to talk about it. So in terms of James, well, I can't go back to call him David Ward-Prowse then for some stupid fucking reason. James Ward-Prowse, what are your thoughts on him?
I think he'll probably come. I mean, to have another free kick specialist inside would not be a bad thing. Talking about last week, Cresswell sort of, maybe being phased out. It'd be good to get another someone to stand over the ball, and he is phenomenal at it. The rest of his game isn't terrible either. I can see him coming as well.
Yeah, I think if Cresswell does go to Wolves, as everyone's talking about at the minute, I do genuinely think that's going to be the linchpin because Emerson takes a decent corner. We've seen that a couple of times in the pre-season games so far. But obviously set up Mbama's second goal against the second goal against Spurs the other week. Well, right about this time last week. By the time this goes out, so and little things like that.
He's got it in him, but James Ward-Prowse is a bit of another level, really, isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, is he sort of Payet-esque in his free kick ability? I think he might be.
Yeah, that's a very good shout, mate. It's one of the reasons why you had those call-ups for England. That call-up, I should say, for England. But yeah, we do have other options in there. That's the point I was going with it. But yes, he is one of the best free kick takers, certainly in the Premier League, and you could probably argue in Europe as well, for that matter. Also, there's been a rejected bid between 40 and 45 million pound, depending on, 37 to 45 million pound, depending on where you're reading it. For Conor Gallagher of Chelsea, who's 23 years old. I think, if I remember correctly, James Ward-Prowse is 27, 28, something like that. So what were your thoughts on Conor Gallagher, mate?
He does a lot of running.
Well, with Chelsea, you have to.
That, I'm not really sure.
Fair enough.
I like him. He's young and he does a lot of running.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I don't think he'll come. I can't see this one coming for him personally. Just the way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you. It would be nice to have him, of course, because he's season before last, when he was on loan at Crystal Palace, he really set the league alight. Very impressive. He was brilliant against us, home and away, and that stuck in everybody's minds. For those that actually understand football, people are saying he's crap, and he's not in any shape or form. Yes, all right, he's he makes mistakes, but who doesn't at the end of the day? And even the football gods of Paolo Di Canio and Bobby Moore made mistakes. So it's everybody does it. But yeah, again, an actual midfielder, a one we can actually sit in the spine of the team, and actually that's basically what the board are trying to do at the moment, is get a player in where they can be adaptable. But I mean, looking at the options, with the exception of Paquetá, and as much as I love him, Fornals is a very, very good player. It's those two and Vlasic. That's it. Vlasic is still a West Ham player as it stands at the time of this recording. No bids. No bids have come in for him. Was it Torino? I think the club he was with last season don't want to pay the £15 million price tag that's on his head. And also the other one as well, for that matter, is obviously that what was who was it? The other one we were talking about. There's three, wasn't there? Gallagher, McTominay. Yeah, 40 to 45 million pound apparently Man United want for him. It's ridiculous, but yeah, very talented midfielder. But what are your thoughts on him?
Well, I think of the three, this is the least likely to happen. Again, I saw a funny thing on Twitter earlier that sort of had him, Gallagher, and I forget who else. I don't think it was Ward-Prowse, another third, but it just said all 0 passes completed, but all of the miles run. And I think I think both of these, sort of thinking about it, they might be there. There's probably a lot of talk about them, because they both sound like kind of upgrades for Souček, really, don't they? And, after the last season that he had, maybe we're looking for one of those.
McTominay is definitely a box-to-box player. Souček will be more holding, the holding defender, defensive midfielder so far this season. In depending on, of course, how we play Paquetá again and the rest, a few other little things here and there. But yeah, I see where you're going with a replacement for Souček. You could argue the player that we didn't talk about last week, because at the end of the day we haven't really seen much of him to form a proper opinion. You could argue that Flynn Downs is Souček's replacement.
You could. And I was thinking about Flynn Downs when I went for a little walk earlier. And I like him, but I, again, just haven't seen enough of him. I really haven't got a clue. I think he's a good squad player for us at the moment. I think he did fine in Europe, didn't he? Yeah. So he'll probably do fine in Europe again.
I mean, for his first season, mate, it was with a handful of appearances that we've all seen a lot of good in him. Of course, everybody, because he was his family's West Ham, so everyone's jumping on that, and it's just like, yeah, he deserves it, blah blah blah, just because of that. And I get it, of course, we want him to be the next Mark Noble from a certain point of view. But yeah, it's interesting. Now, as I say, personally, as we're kind of hinting on this, we need midfielders. We've got wingers, which we'll talk about next week because that's part of the attack. But we haven't got an actual proper left midfielder. I mean, obviously we do with Cornet and Bowen, but we use them as wingers. We don't use them as actual sided midfielders, or sometimes even wing backs on occasion. But that's the funny thing about it, and that's the worry behind it, is the fact that in terms of actual a box to box midfielder, we've only got Souček to rely on, and he needs to take up the defensive midfield role as a result of it. So, I know you said last week you think the midfield's fine, but now we've gone into it a little bit more detail. Do you think we need a few more midfielders?
No, the midfield I'm really worried about. Defence, I think, is all right, but midfield, no. Yes, I think we do. As I say, I almost feel like, with Souček, and I do agree, you're looking at him as a holding midfielder, but in his first season with us, when he did quite well, he was definitely playing that box-to-box role. Yep. And as I said last week, I do worry about him in that defensive midfield role, especially without Declan Rice next to him. In terms of, so you could bring him back into the actual midfield and perhaps look for another holding mid. But yeah, no, this is probably where I'd spend all of the money in midfield.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that one, mate. I mean, because at the end of the day, like we're talking about, is there's a lot of options out there. I mean, like for example, the Sergio Boys, he can play left midfield, but he's more predominantly a left winger. He's right-footed. Again, we'll go into that a bit more detail. There is also my favourite player from outside of West Ham, is also being considered if the Borgia team, the Borgia deal doesn't go through. That's Damari Gray. Now, the thing is, I've rated him since he made his debut with Leicester when they won the league. The worrying thing is that was 6 years ago. He's 27 now.
He's done very little since.
Do you know what I mean? It was just like, I was reading it earlier today. It's just like just doing a bit of catch-up research sort of thing. It's like, it's 27. It's young, massively young. But in terms of football,
yeah,
coming towards the end of his peak. I mean, he's very, very quick. That's one of the reasons why I like his pace. He's very, very good for putting balls into the box as well, for that matter. Mm-hmm. Very, very good player. There is one other player that slipped under the radar, with the exception of Burnley, and they had their bid rejected for him. Is a player that is currently at Sunderland, and is actually one of the reasons why I think this deal could go through if they tried it, is the fact that his agent company is the same company that Snodgrass is with.
I thought you were going to say he was a Saltwell classic.
But with the relationship that we have with his agent, and obviously it's a management company, it'd be a different agent possibly, but I think it could happen. It's a 22-year-old Jack Clark, right? He's a left winger. He's right-footed, but he can also play left mid and also right wing. his price tag for Sunderland is 15 million quid. Now, he was very instrumental in a lot of the Sunderland's push for the playoffs last season. Obviously, we know that didn't happen. They fucked it against Luton in the second leg. Quite frankly, they didn't, a draw in the first leg and they fucked it up away in the second. But he had 45 Championship appearances last season, 9 goals and 12 assists, 3 FA Cup appearances and 2 goals and an assist. And he played in both playoff semi-final games, if I remember correctly, and he got an assist out in that as well. That, to me, alone, is a David Moyes signing. He's 22 years old. It also comes down to the facts, that it's Bowen. It's the Bowen sort of template, and it comes down to the fact that it hits the Steiden criteria as well. That he's young enough that we could sell him on for a few million quid in the next few years. What would you reckon? Sure. Just purely going on those stats. I've seen him a couple of times when I watched the Sunderland, and he was one of the standout players for me. But again, a couple of games. Didn't watch every single Sunderland game, so I can't say.
I think it might be a classic David Moyes signing, but it's also one that will play for 5 games if you buy it.
Well, yeah, there is the other flip side of that Moisey signing as well.
Yeah, take 2 seasons to bed him in, and so what he did all of that playing left wing, did he, last year?
He was playing left mid a little bit and was supporting it out on the wing as well.
I mean, do you know what?
We're not linked with him. We're not linked with him in any shape or form. It's just I was literally reading that Burnley's bid for him was rejected, and I just thought, hang on a second, I know that guy, and I did a bit more research and thought this is a very, very good idea.
Well, I'll tell you what then, Robert Snodgrass, if you're watching.
Have a word, son. Get on the blower. That'd be good. But yeah. So with that in mind, mate, are there any, I mean, you don't have to name any players if you know any, but what sort of, I mean, we've touched on it with the box-to-box midfielder and stuff, but what sort of midfielder would you like the West Ham to bring in? Would it be a number 8, a number 10, number 6?
Well, I mean, what I would like to see, to be perfectly honest with you, is, and I can't name anyone because I don't fine. Any other team but West Ham, is I'd like to see a bit of a marquee signing. I'd like to see a marquee sign in centre midfield. I'd like to see us really sort of not, just break the bank on it, not looking to go 1 for 1. Obviously, you can't. And there is the argument that you need depth as well, and especially in midfield. But I do wonder whether or not, you've got the money, whether or not you could be a bit more ambitious than Conor Gallagher. As much as he lit it up with Crystal Palace. But as I say, I'm drawing from absolutely nothing here. I haven't even played Football Manager in the last year, so I've got nothing here, mate. But that's what I'd like to see, really, to be honest with you. I think we're sorted, generally speaking, in terms of the attack, the striker you might want to look at.
We'll come on to that.
I know we will, but just sort of, around the point, I would like to see us spend the money in midfield, and I would like to see someone that you can have a real, potentially a future captain, or someone that's got that leadership that you're looking to replace, and all of these things. Not sort of going to the well of, Chelsea's bench.
Well, at the end of the day, we've got, as unlikely as it's going to be, because I can't see West Ham going in for putting in more money in that sense. We got Kurt Zuma with no argument. We got they were glad to get rid of Emerson. From what I understand of the Chelsea fan base, they were glad to get rid of him. But it's two players that have really helped us last season. So you never know. It could be third time lucky. You absolutely never know. Yeah, but thank you very much for that, mate. I told you it wasn't going to be as long as last week. Next week's going to be quite an entertaining one. Bearing in mind we'll have a week and a half to go before the season starts, so that'll be quite entertaining. But thank you very much for your time, mate. It's always a pleasure to chat to you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good. Right. So, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please do like, share, and subscribe. For some reason, within the last 36 hours by the time this goes up, 3 people have unsubscribed. And I have no idea why. Maybe because I'm not on the pot talking about every Tom, Dick, and Harry story that's going on. But that's not That's not it's not your fault, mate. Don't worry. Not this time. It's usually me. But yeah, it's because at the end of the day, this is one of the only channels that isn't talking about everything that goes in the papers and comes up on Twitter. So that might be why. But if you are enjoying it, as always, guys, put your comments in the comment section below. Please do like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next week. Hopefully, we'll get a video out over the weekend, because hopefully by then the Sergio Borgia deal should have happened. I've got all the notes, everything's ready to go. I'm just waiting for it to be official. So once that's confirmed, that video will be straight up as soon as possible. But in the meantime, guys, as I say, put your comments in the comment section below. Let me know what you're thinking on this. Who would you like to see West Ham sign, and make it reasonable? We're not bringing in Mbappe and we're not bringing in Messi. He's just gone over to the LA Galaxy, LA Miami, which, by the way, all their shirts are made by Adidas. And who owns the club? David Beckham. It still happens, ladies and gentlemen. It's still, branding deals still happen. But in the meantime, guys, look after yourselves, and I'll see you very, very soon. All the best.